Okay, so good morning everyone and welcome to this very special event as part of NAIDOC that we're celebrating here this week in Alice Springs. But first I'd like to acknowledge our Mayor, Matthew Patterson, is that right? Thank you. Cool. Sorry, I moved away a few years ago. So today we are delighted to be honouring the work and leadership of a very special member in particular of our Alice Springs community, Auntie Pat Miller. So with an oration held in her name, focusing on an area that she's passionate about, and it's the future health, well-being and life opportunities, in particular for our young people.
Good morning, everybody, and it's lovely to be back on Aranda country, and a very special warm welcome to everybody and celebrating NAIDOC week this week, celebrating the achievements and aspirations of Aboriginal people in Central Australia. My name is Marie Meredith and I'm the Director for POSHAS ANT, which is an Aboriginal-led health centre within Flinders University. And I'll be co-facilitating today with my colleague, Kath Martin. We would like to acknowledge that this gathering is being held on the traditional lands of the Aranda people, and I pay my respects to elders past, present, and of course our emerging. Today's oration brings together the voices and insights of 3 generations of Aboriginal women from this place, focusing on a very, very important topic, and that is, what does it mean to be young and free? New directions for Central Australian youth. In NAIDOC week, with the new federal government in power, at a time when there is heightened concern about opportunities and engagement of our young people, there has never been a better time to take a little time to dive into this topic and to hear some fresh perspectives on what the future can look like with empowered, engaged young people in the community. I would like to now call upon Christy Bloomfield to do a welcome to country. Thank you, Christy.
Thank you, Mary. Ora, Achinna Ritna, Christy Bloomfield, Central Aranda, Eastern Aranda, Alyawara, Murukutui, and Bantarunya. Good morning, everyone. It's a bit cold. My name is Christy Bloomfield. I'm a traditional owner of Mbantua Alice Springs. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge our elders, past and present, and our emerging leaders. I'd also like to acknowledge our mayor here this morning to be here. I'd also like to acknowledge that the native title determination by the federal court was made in 1999, that native title was recognised here in Mbantua, Ilkma and Undulya. In Central Australia, we are rich in our culture, language, knowledge and history. There is much to celebrate about our strength and resilience of Aboriginal culture in Central Australia, where a sense of kinship, strong leadership does much to provide support and guidance to the local Aboriginal population. I hope you enjoy our panel discussion today. Central Aranda people have always welcomed people to our country, and today is no different. On behalf of all the traditional owners of Mbantua, welcome. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Thank you.
Thank you. Oops, thank you, Christy. First of all, we want to extend a big welcome in particular to our sponsors for this NAIDOC event. With our sponsors include the Central Land Council, Raft Art Space, the Centre Court Foundation, the Fred Hollows Foundation, ALPA, the Arnhem Land Progress Aboriginal Corporation, Banu Banu Beach Resort or Retreat, Ironbark Aboriginal Corporation and the Larrakia Nation Aboriginal Corporation as well. We would also like to thank the Alice Springs Town Council for their support and allowing us to actually hold this event here today. So money from the sponsorships will go to youth programs for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander young people. But first of all, I would now like to introduce our guest of honour and in particular our panel today. So first of all, the guest of honour is Auntie Pat Miller, Dr. Pat Miller, AO, who will be known to many, if not all of you, So Auntie Pat was born here in Alice Springs and has made extraordinary contributions to Aboriginal health, identity and justice. And we will hear more from her soon. We have Christy Bloomfield, who's a Central Aranda, Eastern Aranda and Yawara woman and traditional owner of Mantua, Alice Springs. So Christy is currently a community legal educator for NAJA in the Law and Justice section, helping to build the confidence and understanding of Aboriginal Territorians to navigate the legal system. And we also have Tanya Turner, who is an Eastern Aranda woman from Central Australia, who currently works as an Indigenous family law officer with the Federal Circuit and Family Court of Australia. And also with us, we have Kyan Campbell and a number of young leaders, our up and coming leaders. But first of all, I'd also like to invite Tanya and Christy to now say a few words.
Thank you and good morning, everyone. Today we're here to celebrate the support, guidance, strength and contribution of Dr. Patricia Miller to her family, friends and the community. On a personal level, Auntie Pat has mentored, guided and supported countless members of the community and those from afar, both Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal. She is always willing to share her knowledge and history to all. As young Aboriginal women, we have had the privilege to experience firsthand Auntie Pat's investment in our future as leaders and contributors to Mbantua. We have also witnessed Auntie Pat's generosity in mentoring and teaching many others, including lawyers, judges and politicians. After leaving high school, Auntie Pat got me straight out of high school to do a traineeship at the Central Australian Aboriginal Legal Service, where I haven't left. 20 years in the legal service and always there to support and guide both Tanya and I. And we're very honoured and privileged to be here this morning to talk about Auntie Pat and also acknowledge her hard work that she's been able to provide for us. Thank you. Some of you are probably wondering, like, who's this ringing and what's she doing up here? But I'm here because of Auntie Pat. After doing my law degree, and I went to Melbourne for a little while, and as happens, the pull to come home to Alice dragged me back, and I was at a private law firm for a little while and absolutely hated life. And Auntie Pat gave me the first opportunity I could get to go to CALIS, Aboriginal Legal Aid. And she has grown me not only as a professional, but also as a person, and taught me a lot of things and just invested a lot in time into who I am today, both professionally and personally. So I'm here today to honour that and thank Auntie Pat for that, and also use the wisdom and learning that she's taught me in our conversation today. So thanks, Auntie Pat.
3 generations of empowered women here. And before we get into the Q&A, I want to give you a little bit of a background of how the oration come to be. And so at Posh SANT, we have been running some workshops for Flinders University. We were listening to the issues that community wanted to talk about. And during those discussions, Auntie Pat said we're talking about youth and the challenges caused by youth people and young people. But there was one particular thing that she did say, and it resonated with us, is that we all talk about the young people, but we don't hear from them. So today is about conversation and creating a space to hear from our young people. And we know that there's a lot happening in Alice Springs. We know that there's a lot of service providers doing their best for our youth. And amidst the headlines, the national headlines of youth crime and calls to lock up and shut away our youth, there isn't enough conversation about the issues behind the headlines, the causes that need to be identified and addressed if we are going to start to build a better future for all. Auntie Pat has quietly, firmly and effectively brought people together for decades in Alice Springs. Her life of service to this town was triggered by a racist slight against her mother, but her response was to be better, stronger and more effective than others ever expected to be. As an exemplar of rising above those troubled times, she has worked on a huge range of community organisations and served as the Deputy to the Administrator for 19 years. But takes quite a strong person and a person with pride and humility to do what she does. And whilst, you know, being there, advocating for all of us, she's also providing love and positive direction for all of our young people in school. So thank you, Auntie Pat.
So both Flinders and Charlestown universities, we've recognised Auntie Pat's contribution to education and community with honorary doctorate degrees. So which are an important validation of not just her knowledge, but in fact the knowledge of all Aboriginal people. That is why we set out to establish this oration in her name, because she's created space for conversations where young people and new voices can be heard. So we hope this is the first of many conversations, or many more conversations, where we hear and respond to voices of young people, creating opportunities for more understanding, more constructive and effective action and greater challenge. So without further ado, I would now like to hand over to Auntie Pat to provide us with some insights from her life, and of course supported by recollections by members of the panel. So no, you've got your own little microphone there?
I've got my own mic. Good morning, everyone. Look, thank you for coming. I know it's very chilly, but never mind, we're tougher here in the centre. I want to thank Marie, who's been a real deadly little worker, and she's my boss, so I've got to take notice of what she says. Just a bit of background on following up from what the ladies said. I was born here in Alice Springs, and then I was taken out to a cattle station southwest of here, and I stayed there till I was about 10 years old. But it was wonderful living out there. When we moved into town, we had a place over the east side, and we had our cousins living with us. And one of them sitting in the front seat with a red scarf on. And what I used to do then, I always wanted to be a school teacher. So I said to my father, I said, can I go to Adelaide? And I knew that some of my friends had gone down there to a girls' home. And he said, no, you can't go down there. And I said, why not? Because if you go down there, I'll have to sign you over to the welfare so that they can pay for your teacher's degree. And I said, what does that mean? That means that you'll become a ward of the state, and there's no way that you're going down there. And so I said, all right, the next best thing was to teach my cousins. So I'd sit them up on these house bricks. One was 10 and the other two were 9. And every Saturday afternoon, I'd teach them things. And they, oh, we want to go and play now. The bricks were getting hotter and hotter, and they're sitting there. And no, you can't go until you get all this correct. So I'd have the spelling on one chart and arithmetic on the other. And anyhow, at the end of that year, 2 got 99% and the other one got 100. And the teacher thought that they were cheating. So she told the headmaster about these Aboriginal kids who got these top marks. And they tried to trick them up. No, we weren't cheating. They took them aside and made them spell different words. No, they were right. They got 100%, 99%. And they said, thank you, Pat, for doing that. One of them became a qualified teacher and a qualified lawyer, all wrapped into one. The others have just excelled in their own life, you know, over the years. And we always laugh about how Saturday afternoons they'd try and run away from me and I'd grab them. Come on, sit up and learn these stuff. So I followed up after that with mentoring, and I just really had an urge to teach. So I think that's probably where all the mentoring came in, plus doing my own work as well. But, you know, to be here today and be acknowledged by Flinders and the wonderful staff at Flinders, and also including the Dean of the Medical, just wonderful people that I worked with over all the years, doesn't matter which area that I've been working in, whether it's been education or legal or media. You know, I was chair for Imparja Television for some, you know, I was on the committee for some 23 years and a chair for 10. So it's been a wonderful time of my life to be able to share the knowledge that, you know, that I've had experience in. But I really do honour my family because they've given me so much support, and also my late husband. I wouldn't have been able to do things without him. He was always there in support of me, and you know, and that aura was you know, something I'll never forget. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Auntie Pat. And just to kick off the Q&A, I'd like to follow up with the question, Auntie Pat. If you were given the power to change one thing that would improve the lives of our young people, what would that be, Auntie Pat?
I'd make sure they get up, stand up, show up, and go to school.
Sorry, I didn't get a mic. Sorry. So a question for Christy. So what do you say when people call for more young people to be locked up for that antisocial behaviour?
Look, I think it's, you know, we're all frustrated. It's not only just happening here in Barnstable, it's happening all over the country at the moment, you know. So I think for us as traditional owners and the next leaders, we're here, you know, we've started our own company on Chumpa Consultancy and Services and getting the young kids to work with us as well. But I say, look, there's a lot of great businesses out here that want to offer their help as well in supporting these young people on the streets and young people in Central Australia. And I say that, look, rather than, you know, building on to the frustration and all of that, let's work together and we can all change this town and, you know, for a better future for all of us. Yeah.
Oh, I'm adding to it, apparently. Yeah, going back to the part about prison and locking kids up, I can say that as a lawyer who's worked in Aboriginal legal aid for a number of years, locking kids up doesn't work. If you treat kids like criminals, they're going to behave like criminals. And that's sort of what I see as being a core issue in town. You know, even watching kids walk around the street, they act tough and that on the outside, but really on the inside, there's nothing. There's a shell in there. And the community, you know, we all do it. We brush past them, we ignore them, we push them to the outer edges of our community and society. And that's basically pushing them in that direction as well. So like Christy said, it's about the community as a whole coming together. And look, it's not a fight that everyone wants to fight, and that's okay. We all choose our battles, but it's something that we're interested in helping to fight. And yes, you know, prison is an answer for some people, but a lot of our young people, it isn't the place that they need to be. And not a lot of rehabilitation goes on in there. And I'm sure the stats would show that when they come out, they're definitely not necessarily better people or changing their behaviour in the community.
I just want to remind the audience too that we'd like to hear from you. So if you've got any questions as we're going through, please raise your hand and we'll bring the mic over to you. But we're really interested in getting some questions from you as well. So I just want to ask our young people here, and this is a question for Cayenne and some of the young women here. You've grown up in Alice Springs. Can you tell us what life is like being a young person here right now?
They're a little shy this morning. But yeah, Cayenne did, and the rest of the girls, you know, they did say, look, it's because Auntie, you know, we have a lot of support. We can go to our grandparents all over this town, you know, and ask for support. And we've got a lot of support, you know, within our own initial family. But one thing the girls have always said to us, you know, growing up, they've had to learn racism from an early age. You know, a lot of our little young people, Aboriginal kids, you know, they learn racism from an early age, and even these kids can see those little differences. And they come back and ask us all the time, well, how come I didn't get served first? Or how come when I go with my other darker family that we have to get kicked out of the store, you know? And if I go with my non-Aboriginal friends, we're all right. So it's those difficult things that, you know, these young girls all face today as well. And we've been lucky enough to, you know, share our own experience with, you know, students coming from interstate, you know, from the Red Earth pathways and rustic pathways, learning out on country the difficulties that these young people face in town. I mean, they've got a lot of friends, but they kind of stick together, and they've joined in working with us. And, you know, that's some of the struggles that they face as, you know, even from their own kind, to be like, well, you think you're better than us, you know, and for us, we've always had that growing up. But we try to, you know, we get the support from our family, which a lot of these young kids don't have on the streets at the moment.
Thank you. Yeah. And Auntie Pat, I'd like to get your perspective here, and a perspective from a grandmother. And I know that you belong to the grandmothers group. You know, what's it going to take to, you know, start reaching out to our younger kids to make a difference?
I think, as I've said before, Marie, we all talk about people, but we never talk to them. You know, even if you get half a dozen children and take them for a meal and sit down and just ask them what's going on in your head. You know, I think there's different agencies. Usually people take time out when they've actually come into conflict with law, as well as, you know, the justice system. And that's when people start asking questions. But they're actually asking questions after they've committed a crime or, you know, acts of, you know, petty theft and things like that. People don't know how to engage, the rules of engagement. When outlying communities come into town, they should be told what the rules of engagement are when you come to Mbarnta, and how to engage with, you know, people working in shops. You know, there's quite often some of the shop assistants are quite unpleasant to the children, and that gets a bad reaction as well. So they go and tell each other. So it's a negativity when they start off with the first contact. So I think unless we get together and get a group of people together so they can actually talk to the children, and there's so many agencies in this town that are there for Aboriginal community, you know, it's about time combined organisations got back together and become the strength that we used to be in the 80s and 90s. Right now, you know, individually people are separated and worrying about their own little power structure. I think that you can only solve a problem if everybody gets together, and it doesn't matter what colour you are. If you're a community person, you know, let's get together and start this again. You know, we grew up in a lovely town. People respected each other. People acknowledged that there were differences amongst our community, but that respect was there. And I think that's just gone out the window now. And we're all sort of saying, well, look at those people. Well, we're sick and tired of being called those people. We are from here. We live here. We're traditional owners. The people that come in from outlying areas are respected. We understand each other's cultures and their way of life. So I think it's about time everybody accepted that Aboriginal people aren't going anywhere. You know, I grew up underneath the assimilation policy, where you weren't allowed to speak your language, and if the school teachers heard you speaking language, you'd get caned for that. A lot of us struggle to speak fluent language, but we certainly understand, you know, our dialects and our father's tongue as well as our mother's tongue. So I think that, you know, we want to go back to the past, but we want to make sure that the future's, you know, very promising for our young people. So thank you.
Thank you, Auntie Pat. Sorry, so now I've got a question for Tanya. So there's been a lot of coverage in the media, in particular about youth crime. There's lots of broken windows and roller shutters in town. How hard will it be to bring the community with you as you start to address some of these issues?
Yeah, thank you. And that's a really good point. And I think following on from Auntie Pat, it's important to acknowledge that Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people in the town, everyone's fed up. None of us like seeing the broken windows and, the chaos and the violence and all the things that are going on. So it's not an easy thing. As we know, it's been going on for some time now, and there's not one single answer, but we really think that it's a community wraparound response that's required. So, as Aboriginal people and as traditional owners and leaders, we want to be at the forefront, and we have that cultural authority and knowledge to do those things, but we need to bring the whole community with us. There are a lot of good business owners out there who want to be a part of positive change. They don't want to see kids locked up, but they're at their wits' end, they don't know what to do. So we want to support them. They've got ideas to bring to the table, but they just don't know where to go with them because they don't have that cultural authority or ability to implement those things. So we're working on those things now, working with those members of the community, working with everyday families who also want to help. There's a lot of really good people in our community who want to be a part of this. And like we said, they just don't know where to start. So we're here to support everyone. And it's not going to happen overnight, as we know, but we have to start somewhere. And it's time that this was led by Aboriginal people, Aboriginal voices and Aboriginal initiatives.
That's really great. Now, I know that I've heard that there's 125 services in Alice Springs that are supporting the provision of youth. What do you say to those 125 organisations currently here in Alice Springs?
Well, it's not about, we're not here to say that nobody's doing good work. I think that all those services do good work in their own space. But like Auntie Pat said, everyone's working in silos. There's no coming together of ideas because we're in a situation where we all have to fight for funding. You have to prove that you're better than the next organisation to get the money to support what it is that you want to do. So in that environment that's been created for us, everyone feels like they're in competition with each other, as opposed to, like Auntie Pat said, back in the day where everyone came together and worked on the solutions to the problem. So it's about advocating for that again, building alliances with the services that exist. And, we can see advantages of different services where we see a young person, we're like, oh, let's take them to that service because they do that really well. As opposed to sort of saying, no, let's keep them to ourselves so that we get the stats and the money for that kind of stuff. So it's trying to shift that entire environment that we work in the youth sector, which is a challenge in itself, but it's something that we're trying to work towards and get rid of this competitive sort of mentality.
Yeah, Christy, this question's for you, and I know that you're really, really busy, you and your colleagues, but what makes you, what makes you want to help young people? What's the drive there? What's behind that?
It's our elders, Auntie Pat, Auntie Barbs, Auntie Lorraine, Auntie Zane, Auntie Barb, everyone here, our elders, look how hard they've fought to get us where we are today, the hard stuff that they had to go through. So, we always get questioned, well, why do you want to do that, from our dad? And he's always questioning, well, Dad, you might have lived a hard life, hard labour and for, not enough money. And so that's what drives us as, young Aboriginal people within our family. The dedication and the hard work that our elders have done before us. And it makes us proud of who we are. And it just, drives us to continue that hard work that we're going to continue to do. We're not leaving anywhere, we've bought a house now, so I've got to stay. But, we're all here. We always look for our elders to contribute, and they still want to be a part of change, which is amazing. So we're always getting them to come and join us, do certain things and help out, and they love it as well, just as much as we love it. The girls, you know, do the dancing and learn the dancing from the elders, and yeah, like I said, we're not going anywhere. We're here to make a change, but also the hard work that our elders have done to continue their legacy and hard work.
I just want to add to that. I named this lady. I'll give her her name. Her mother rang me up and said, I'm having twins. Anyhow, the twin girls were born. She said, I'm going to name one Kirsty. I said, well, why don't you name the other one Christy? Yeah, but that's spelled with a C. I said, well, spell it with a K. So now it's Kirsty and Christy, and this is my number one Malpa.
So I've got a question for Kyan. So we've got 3 generations of Aboriginal people here, all of whom have seen a version of their current story to kids. Basically, the kids being seen as troublemakers. So how would you like to see the world change for the next generation of kids after you? Yeah. So what do you think you'd like to see for the next generation? For your kids? It's all right. Yeah. Thank you.
Shy this morning, Kyan. Kyan's been lucky enough to be selected in the AFL Academy draft, and so she's one of our only Central Australian representatives, and we're very proud of her. And then, yeah, and then the other girls, you know, also were a part of the Paddy Mills tournament here, and they were all part of the basketball carnival here. But yeah, so these young girls, you know, they love to work out on the station with us. They love to do their dancing and practice, and they love to be around, you know, our elders as well. Kyan, you want to talk about the Santa Teresa trip you do with the Timmy Dutton? Yep.
So I travel out to Santa Teresa. Is it like 2 hours away from here? Yeah. I do like footy stuff with all the kids, like during the day, just playing footy with all the kids, making them laugh. Yeah, my main job is just, you know, putting a smile on the kids' face, making sure they have a little run around before they go into classes. We work with preschoolers up to the senior classes. So yeah, we just do like footy stuff, kicking around with them, making them laugh and all that. So yeah. Lately I've been flying in and out of Alice to go for footy trips. As Arnie said, I got picked for the AFLW thing under 18s, but I'm a bottom major, so I get the draft liners next year. So waiting for that. I've traveled to Melbourne, Sydney, Adelaide, Darwin, yeah, Tasmania. I've been on footy trips. Yeah, so it's a good experience, and hopefully we'll make the AFLW.
The girls have been lucky enough to host 2 school groups. We had a group of 27 students come out to Napa Homestead, and so the girls were able to teach them about our history out at Napa on my father's side, their grandfather's side. They taught them how to do some kangaroo tails, girls, and they also did some bush tucker walks with them, hunting and that. So we had a group of 27 students from Red Earth Pathways, and then Rustic Pathways, we had a group of 12 students. Now, these are students that come from Sydney University, Sydney High School. So we're doing a lot of work with, you know, interstate young people, but our main focus we want to ultimately do is work with our young people in Central Australia and provide them the same kind of opportunity that these young people come into Central Australia for. So the girls have been great working out there, earned a bit of show money out there, and now it's all gone.
And that was really wonderful to hear that Cheyenne is a part of Timmy Duggan's, Cheyenne's a part of Timmy Duggan's initiative. Yeah, that's really great. One of the things that POSHA A&T, their remit is to support 500 health leaders by 2025. So part of our approach is to support young people in not just their education and academic pursuits, but also their sporting pursuits as well. 2 weeks ago, we launched the POSHA A&T partnership with Health for Hoops in the top end. So we're really keen to support other academies down here to make sure that our youth have the best possible opportunities to go forward and to be, empowered young people. So thank you. I'd like to open up to the audience if there's an opportunity for comment, question, insights, but we've got a great panel here, so yeah, I'd like to hear from you. Anybody? We've got, can we have someone for the roving mic, please? And if you can say your name and where you come from, thank you.
Hi, my name's Nicole. I'm actually new to Alice Springs. My question, and firstly, thanks for pulling together such an amazing panel. Auntie Pat, I agree with you in terms of education. I think education is incredibly important for young people. So this is a big question, but what do you, and open to anybody on the panel, but what do you think we need to do? What are some of the big things that we can do to make sure that our education system is accessible and safe, particularly for Indigenous young people?
I think first of all, we've got to make sure that we talk to the grandparents and the parents and what the value is. When I first come to school, I'd come straight out of the sandhills from the station, and there was no preschool. I was put into a class with a whole lot of others, mixed class, Aboriginal, non-Aboriginal, and we just had to try and figure out what on earth they were teaching us. My first experience was my other brothers and sisters at the convent, they were boarders there. So I was boarding from the station when I was 6 years old, and we went and met with the nuns at the convent, and then they said, do you know anybody here? And I said, yeah, I've got a cousin here, and her name was Jenny Ross. And so she was a boarder at the convent. And then the next day I went to school, and Jenny came and got me, and she said, now when the bell rings, you meet me outside and I'll show you where the water fountain is. You can get a drink of water, and we'll wait until after recess, and then you go back inside. So she pointed me to the direction of my classroom. I go in there, and I was about third row from the front, boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl. And there was this nun, and she's calling people out to read this chart, and it had pretty pictures on it, and I never forget this. And she said, like, the kids in front of me got up, and then she called me up. I couldn't understand what they were saying, so she said, A is for, and I'd seen this red fruit. Now I'd never ever seen a ripe red apple, because we'd grown up on the station. I knew citrus fruit and grapes, and I'd never seen a red apple. And so I kept saying, she said, A is for, and I said, fruit. So I got a whack for that. She had a cane in her hand, straight across the back of the leg, 6 years old. And I was thinking, I'm not going to cry. And then she asked me that about 3 times. Then she said, B is for. Now, my brothers didn't play cricket. They rode horses, they rode donkeys, they did hard work. They were tough blokes. And there was no cricket at the station. So So I said, stick. And she said, B is for? I didn't know what it was. So I said, stick. So I got another whack on the legs. And she said, get to your seat. So I went back to the seat and my legs were stinging. But the thing that hurt me most, she didn't ask me what that third one was. I knew what C was for because we had plenty of cats at home. You know, so that was my introduction to, you know, tough schooling. And when the bell rang, I didn't wait for my cousin Jenny Ross. I took off across the creek and I ran as fast as I could and got under the bed. And we didn't have any cement floors. Our floors were creek sand, which got raked every morning. And my old granny spotted the tracks and she said, she's talking in language to my mother. That little one's run in the bed, she's here. So Mum comes in and asks me, you know, why did I run back from school? And she could still see the red marks across my legs. So she got out her kutra, which is a woman's fighting stick. And she was going down to sort those nuns out. So my mother, my granny stopped her. And then lo and behold, that afternoon, my dad arrived in town from the station. And anyhow, there was a lot of talking and shouting. So he put me on the back of his old army blitz and I went back to the station for another year and then come into Hartley Street School. But the teacher there was absolutely wonderful. And I had all these good mates and cousins that I was with, and that introduction to schooling was something I'd never ever forget. So I think that it's how you approach schooling from a very early age and how the introduction of that education system to that child will stay forever if it's done the right way.
Just following on from that as well, you know, talking about education, I'm not sure if any of you have seen In My Blood It Runs, you know, of a young Aboriginal boy here in Central Australia in a, you know, town camp living, you know, all the issues that our young people are facing, you know, living at home. But also, you know, he thought, you know, he was dumb. He didn't know how to read those simple words. And like Auntie Pat said, it's that introduction to education. Now, we don't have a Kip McGrath for Aboriginal kids, but look how amazing that little setup is, you know, and have to pay big money for. You know, I think we should look into organising our own little further education for our young people that, you know, get them there, you know, empower them to get there and start getting those simple words. But yeah.
One lady at the back. Say your name and where you come from. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Sarah from Brisbane, visiting from Turuwa and Yagara country. It's a privilege to hear the conversation. Thank you. My question is, are there alternatives or could there be good alternatives to the criminal justice system so that kids don't get in there in the first place? Like what could there be in terms of like restorative justice or other models? Thank you.
Look, having worked in the legal service for many years, there isn't a lot here in Mbantua, in Central Australia as well, you know. We do have a lot of services here, but unfortunately we just don't have those programs that, you know, the cities have, the top end have. So look, we're hoping to, you know, with our own work, we want to be able to run, you know, alternative programs for our young people and start empowering them and talking about respect and responsibility rather than knowing your rights, because it brings it back to us that we were taught, you know, the way we were taught respect and responsibility. So I think ultimately we should all look into, you know, setting up programs, alternative programs as well. Tanya, you want to add on?
Else I can add, but yeah, that like Christy said, in Alice, we have only a very select few programs that are available, not only to young people, but even adults who are engaged in the criminal justice system. And even once people are at the prison, the programs again are quite limited. So as Christy said, it's about expanding what's available. And obviously for young people in particular, it's very specific what they need. And as we know, for our young people in particular, going out bush, being on country, connecting to who they are, relationships with family and all those things are important. So they're the kinds of programs that we need to work on. And like Chrissy said, focusing on empowering them as opposed to a Band-Aid in the moment. You know, you've broken the law, let's try and put a Band-Aid over that. Now it's that whole of life view. You know, what do you want to achieve? Where do you want to go? What can we do to get you there? And teaching them the basic human norms of respect and responsibility, because a lot of these kids don't have people around them. You know, teaching them how to go to the shop or how to speak to people and engage with the community. So it's bridging that divide for them so that they're not on these outer fringes, that we can bring them in within the community as well.
More questions from the audience. Welcome, Jimmy Cocking. You were CEO for Desert Knowledge. Welcome, Jimmy. You got something to say? An insight question?
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Jimmy Cocking, Desert Knowledge Australia, day 3. When we're talking about this duplication and there's all these different services that, you know, I heard today on the drive here that Aboriginal people are the most consulted people, but the action that comes from that consultation is what frustrates and, you know, disempowers people. And I just wonder, in terms of breaking down those silos and finding that way to work together, what do you see? Like when you see an image in your head or when you see what that working together looks like, what does it look like in terms of the steps, you know, in terms of the first meeting or how we start moving in that direction? Have you got any insights that you can share on that?
Thanks, Jimmy. My first thing would be give us control. I've been consulted on things that many times, but they're not actually listening. And, you know, I've said this to CEOs and, you know, in Sydney and Melbourne, and I said, oh, we consulted with you. We talked to you. I don't understand, you know, what's the problem? And I said, but you're not listening. You know, we have the answers. So it's okay to let go and give us some control and let us do it how we want to do it. And I think that for me, that's the biggest frustration I have, is that we get little bits, you know, they'll sort of give us a little bite of the pie, but they won't give it all to us. It's like it's a control thing. They can't just sort of go, here, all right, you do it. Here's the money, you do it. But there's always something, there's a catch, you know, there's a sub-clause at the bottom. And I think that's the biggest issue. It's consulting, but not listening and not giving over that control.
I think, you know, our elders, you know, grew up in an era where they ran everything, you know, our grandparents ran everything and they owned, you know, quite a lot of businesses around town. But even our communities, you know, there was always Aboriginal-led, Aboriginal voices. And then you've got, like Tanya said, you know, the government have come in and, you know, giving that control, holding a bit of control, always controlling Aboriginal people. So, yeah, I agree with Tanya, you know, in terms of let us do what we know what we can do, because, I mean, we're ready to do it and it's that opportunity for us to do it now. So let's hope it happens.
Oh, thank you. Is there any more questions? Oh, one more? It's all comments, yeah.
Hi, I'm Miranda from Lutruwita, Tasmania, living back in Alice Springs for a while. I was just wondering if you think the work towards treaty here and across Australia and working with the Uluru Statement will help make it or give us a boot in the arse, really, of getting the power over to you mob, and so you can run your lives. How important do you think this movement is? Thank you.
we're all a little bit, I mean, I guess the reality is for most Aboriginal people here, what does treaty even mean? I think, you know, I know that Victoria has recently done a lot of work on treaty, but for us here, I think that most Aboriginal people would just say to you, what does that actually mean for us, and explain to us what it would give us, I suppose, because I guess we don't know what it would mean or if it would change anything. And that's probably that pessimism, because there's just so many things that come out. Is just the next catch, you know, the next catchphrase, and what would it really mean?
Actually, sorry, I'm going to jump in. The other thing that we need, apart from control, is we also need ownership and also recognition for the people, because so many people come in and do these great programs and they walk away with all the accolades. But how about acknowledging the people on the ground? And that's, you know, these are the people that it impacts. So, yeah, sorry.
The comment from the audience. Any insights? Any more insights? Got one more? Yeah. I think it's Carly, isn't it? Yeah, good on you, Carly.
My name's Carly. I'm a lawyer in town, and like so many others, I got my start under Auntie Pat and learned incredibly valuable lessons from her, which I will never forget. I want to ask Christy, because I know that this family that are sitting before us are just an absolute powerhouse, and they have vision and they innovate. So you've got your consultancy firm, and so I just wanted to know, like, what are you guys doing with that, and what services can we try and engage you on, and yeah, what programs are you running?
Thank you. Yeah, so Onchumpa Consultancy and Services is led by traditional owners, Aboriginal led, started up just with us girls and, you know, with Mum Karen Little, who's helped us out, our boss. But yeah, our services that we're currently doing in town, we're looking at doing a project for Territory families, which hopefully that'll get on the way. We've also just had a big meeting with Territory government and looking at running some youth programs and projects with them as well. The stuff that we have been doing is for non-Aboriginal kids, you know, interstate. They're all looking to, you know, throw a bit of money at us to run these programs for them, cultural programs for them, coming out on country. And ultimately, that's great for us and gives the girls an opportunity to engage with different students from all over the country. But we want to be able to run these services and programs for our young people in town. We're also doing, you know, we do cultural tours here in town. Welcome to Country with my cousin as well, Benedict Stevens. We're also doing cultural awareness training as well. But these are things that, you know, we want to be able to put out there for our community and put in through the courts as well, to be able to, these young people to come and join us, yeah, to run these programs. But it hasn't happened. So fingers crossed we get some, yeah, funding and then be able to do these for our own kids here. Yeah.
Thank you, ladies. It's been wonderful. And thank you to everyone for coming today. We just want to do a little bit of a summary so that you walk away with you know, some clarity and some clear messages from our panel members. So it's pretty obvious that there are some really great people in the community doing some really great things. But I think it's really important now that we start to hear from our young people, really understanding that they are doing good things. And I think that's part of the conversation, is understanding that there are some really great things happening, albeit that they do need to be supported. And it's our job to create the space for those young people to come through and have those discussions about what it is best for them and their future. We also know that there are lots of agencies, and I like the idea with Tanya saying that we've got to bring people together to have that conversation, but we want the control. Aboriginal people need the control. What's also required is that the community needs to come together, and it needs to be a wraparound system. An interesting point also that Tanya made was that organisations are funding for, having funding by competing for the funding. So I think there needs to be a really thorough conversation around working together and not competing, but complementing each other. So that were a few of the key messages, and what I'd like to summarise by saying is that, and it was your point, Auntie Pat, and this is what you've said, and this is a very important point. You can only solve the problem when everybody gets together. It doesn't matter what colour you are, let's all get together. And I think that's the message that we want everyone to take home today, is this idea of working together. We now want to, bring in the next part of the program, and it's a very special part of the program. Our dearest Auntie Pat retired as the Deputy Administrator last year, and the Administrator couldn't be here today. And in the last little while, because of COVID, we haven't been able to unveil Auntie Pat's portrait. But today, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do that for Auntie Pat today. So I'll just hand it over to Kath, because Kath's actually got some of the words from our Administrator.
Okay, so this is a message from the Administrator of the NT. She says, I'm sorry I cannot be there today for your portrait unveiling. I know you are in good company amongst the many family, friends and community members who hold you so dear. So this wonderful piece was commissioned by Government House and funded by the Government House Funding Incorporation. And this is to honour your service to the Northern Territory as Deputy of the Administrator for more than 20 years. It seems only fitting that its unveiling occurs today during NAIDOC Week celebrations and of course following your oration. So I look forward to viewing the portrait at its new and most appropriate home at the National Pioneering Women's Hall of Fame next time that she is in Alice Springs. So please enjoy this special moment. Go well and much love from your Administrator and friend, Vicky. Oh, hello. Thank you.
I'd also like to mention that the portrait was commissioned by the administration, and we also have the artist here today. So a big thank you to Dr. Ali Strangeways. So here we are. So without further ado, we might unveil the portrait, and we'll get Auntie Pat across. And Lucas, can you come up and give us a hand, please? So on behalf of Post SANT, we'd like to thank you for joining us in conversation today. We are extremely supportive of our young people, and we want to continue walking together and walking hand in hand with our young people for our young people. So on behalf of Post SANT, I proudly present to you the portrait of Dr. Pat Miller.
Everyone want to come up closer and we can get a nice photo?
I just want to acknowledge that this painting here was done by my late auntie, Bessie Little, who was an artist from this area for many, many years. And this is really touching for me. Her daughter Lorraine is here, and I'd like to ask Lorraine, who we know as Bubs, to come up and help me. Yeah.
Congratulations, Auntie Pat.
I said to Dr. L when she showed me the final work, I said, gee, you've captured somebody else there. It's not my usual look. And she said, no, she said, I saw right into you. So thank you, Dr. L. Lovely.
How are you?